Hey everybody, hope you're having a great day. This next conversation is about the big D.
Divorce, that is.
Christy and I are just going to share our individual experiences going through such a traumatic time, and hope that it's of value to you.
Promise we'll get to the more fun subjects. We just have to touch on this first.
So if you enjoy the content and you find value in it, please hit the subscribe button below, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
So last time we were together, we were talking about what it was like to be in a unhealthy relationship or a bad relationship, or just a relationship that was unfulfilling, and what it was like for you and I to progress out of that. So kind of the next logical move forward was the next stage in our life was the actual big D, the divorce. Right? And
don't get dirty, Sargent.
Right? So, so maybe we could just talk a little bit about the whole process, what it was like for you, what it was like for me.
And it's interesting that we were on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as you were the one that wanted to leave in your relationship, and he was the one that wanted to leave in mine. So it's kind of interesting to look at both sides.
Yeah, the whole dynamic, you being a female, me being a male, and there's just a whole contrast. Yeah. So I know that, I don't know, we covered a little bit last time we talked, but I know for me, I was the one that went to my wife at the time and said, "Hey, I'm not happy, and I want to get a divorce." And I didn't know what to expect, but it was, I guess in my mind, I thought, oh yes, I'm just not happy, and we want to progress. I felt it maybe innocuous, or it was going to be smooth. It was.
Well, let's talk about some of that, like that transition period when it's over and you're trying to cope, and it'd be interesting to hear your side of how you dealt with that.
Kind of walking up to the edge of the cliff.
Just of like once you decided this is what's going to happen, which I know you said she filed for divorce, but
yeah, later through the process. So I think for me it was, and this wasn't one day, I didn't wake up one day and said, oh, I'm not happy, or no, I think I want a divorce. I mean, this was a very long, drawn out emotional process for me. I think I shared last time where I had sat with a counselor for a year and a half, really just trying to answer the question about why I was so fragmented. And when it came down to the point, it was like, I'm not happy. It's not her fault. I'm just not happy in the relationship. Then the next logical step for me was to exit. Right?
So I think it's interesting. So you kind of got to start the whole process of dealing with it and letting go while you were still married. Whereas it felt literally like the proverbial rug ripped out from under you. And so then I had to immediately start processing. My life was changing. Our family unit was going to be broken, and just all the stress of that. And I think we were going to talk a little bit today about how you deal with that, or what helped me get through that rough time.
Yeah. And I was sitting there thinking as you were talking, on my side, right, it was more, I want to say premeditated, that wasn't the right word, but I had a lot of time to process and think emotionally and mentally and intellectually about the process before I ever communicated it outside of my time with my counselor. But like you just said, how it was a rug ripped out from underneath you.
I mean, in hindsight, like I
Sure.
said in our other video, I can see the issues in hindsight, but when I was in it, either I was just closing that off, or I just truly didn't see it. Sometimes you don't see things when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah. But it made me think about my former wife, how probably in a lot of ways she was in your shoes.
Right.
Where I don't want to say she didn't see it coming. Obviously, she knew that, we had challenges and issues. We were in our relationship, in our marriage, but I think for me going up, I can still see her face today when I said I want a divorce, and I can only imagine it would have been somewhat similar to where you were at.
Yeah. I mean, the very first thing I did as someone who never really journaled, I went out and bought a journal. And it was actually a really good healing process for me to get all that out on paper. So I think initially I was embarrassed, like almost like I was a failure. You're not going to make me cry this
Nope,
time. Quit
not gonna
tearing
make
up.
you cry.
And so that was like my first step, I think, that I did for myself that really helped me get through. And then it was interesting. You don't realize while you're going through it, but to look back and read it and just the progress of healing is kind of nice to look back on. So I'm really glad I did that.
Yeah, it's and for me, I had been journaling for years, and I've got like, I don't know.
Oh, we know.
Right, books
Stacks,
and books of
yeah,
journals, right,
yeah.
and just processing my thoughts, and so it was very cathartic for me, but it was very much a elongated process. In some ways, I feel kind of now it was a little unfair. I don't know if that's the right word, because I had such a time to process it, and even though it was still difficult, and I felt guilty and all these things, I can imagine looking back, 13 years later, how she must have felt.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I think for me, when I actually had the conversation, I wanted a divorce, and I really didn't. That word was still kind of a little foreign to me, as I didn't know all it entailed. I didn't think it was going to be as, I don't know, explosive.
And stressful for both parties.
Oh, yeah.
Like I had a whole new compassion. I'd heard of friends of mine getting divorced and that, but I really had no clue what an emotional impact that is on somebody, whether they're the one that's asking for the divorce or their partner asking for a divorce. And I had so much empathy, and I thought, oh, wow, I should have been a better friend to those people during that time. Because, I really had no clue.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was just living in my own little bubble. I feel like I'm a very empathetic person and very caring, but that was like hitting a brick wall going through that.
Yeah, you hear those saying that like you can't understand what it's like until you've been through it, and I've heard that in the past too. But boy, I didn't.
Oh,
and now
yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
You can't. It does. It makes you much. I hopefully it certainly did me, and I think it did to you. It makes you so much more empathetic and so much more compassionate, because you know that the process is it's gutting. I don't know of a better word to say. Now, I think there are some people out there who their relationship is such where they both see it kind of coming in, like you shared last time. Every relationship has a life cycle, and I think there are some people. I know some people that hey, this just isn't working, and they're able to amicably end it.
Oh, I still think it's as painful though, for those people.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the degree of, if you're wondering, indiscretions that may have happened during your marriage, and that adds a whole another level of pain, but it's still such a traumatic experience, I think, for anybody that goes through it.
Yeah. No, it definitely is.
And it's definitely a time to like lean on your family and lean on your friends and not be embarrassed and try to hold it in and not talk about it. I think initially that's why the journal really helped me, because I didn't want to open up fully to everyone.
Yeah.
Still almost like I was protecting him in a way. But those people that like reached out, and then when I was able to fully open up, it was so cathartic and so healing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a time. You don't want to isolate yourself, I guess is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, that's a really good point, as I think I'm trying to like mentally put myself back there in the time, and boy, it just has so much to do with the culture, or the socioeconomic culture you live in, or the groups, whether, like for me, it was like this sense of I felt like a failure, and I felt judged, and at that time, more of the institutional church family was bigger in my life, and so I definitely felt I felt judged. I felt like I couldn't be open. I think that point in my life, really the only person I could actually be completely open with was my counselor, because there wasn't at that time that individual or individuals in my life where I could really just be broken or be vulnerable, to be human.
Yeah.
You know?
I didn't do counseling, which I probably should have, but my friends kind of became my counselors.
Yeah.
And it was just, such a big help to have them there during that time. And then especially people that had been through divorce, because like you said, you don't truly know until you've been through it. So to hear from people that had been through it and survived and like kind of told you the path, it was helpful to kind of hear, like, take it day by day. If it starts becoming, I was getting very overwhelmed with looking too far into the future. How am I gonna be able to afford a house payment by myself? I've got to get a new house. I've got to basically start all over, and my kids were still with me. I've got to make sure I find a place big enough for them, and so just all the pressure of that, when it started to become too overwhelming, I just took it day by day. Just get up, take a shower, fix your hair, even if you don't feel like it. All those little steps start leading you back to normalcy and really help you, if you just keep moving forward, even if it's baby steps, even if you have to crawl that day.
Yeah.
I think you just have to keep moving forward, and then eventually you're back into the light.
Right. You're sitting there talking, and I was just thinking about, a divorce, like you said, is such a deeply personal, emotional event. That's almost underestimating. But isn't it interesting? Like, once the word divorce comes into the conversation, then it becomes very mechanical. Then it's like, okay, now you have to. So when at the time when you most need understanding and vulnerability and compassion and time, is the time that you have to go into like action mode, right? I gotta get. Unfortunately, I gotta get an attorney, and then the kids are gonna be involved, and then I gotta start thinking about assets, and then we gotta start talking about where you're gonna live. And so, isn't it interesting though? It's like the time where you really need to just be raw is the time you can't be.
Oh yeah, there's definitely
what I mean?
a period when you just have to, especially when you have kids involved, just get stuff done. You don't want them to see you totally broken.
Right.
But like I said, I felt like if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, eventually everything falls into place.
Yeah. I know in my circumstance, when I had time to think about it. So I thought, I really don't want, and this is probably naive on my part, but like, can we handle this without going down the road of dealing with attorneys? Because no offense to any attorneys that are out there, but nothing good ever comes of it. I mean, they may disagree.
They're
but
much needed though, because how many divorced couples can usually agree?
No, I agree.
Which,
There's two schools of thought on it.
I feel like you and I made it pretty easy as far as just splitting everything and. Well, maybe not on your end. On my end,
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot to be fighting over, so we basically just split ways.
Right. Yeah. So in my case, like my intent, again, I think I was being naive. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to exit the relationship. We got to go through the process of divorce, and let's get a mediator and let's mediate this out, like two adults who can say, hey, look, this is, because I met her when I was 18. We got married 2 weeks after I turned 21. So, and we had 2 children together. So certainly we started from nothing together. And so obviously what we had built together. Whether I was the primary wage earner or not, it doesn't matter. We were a team, and we did life together and we raised the kids together. So I thought, well, we will just, let's mediate this. And I thought, well, this is the way to handle it in a very professional way. Well, that just.
Well, yeah, I think hurt people sometimes.
Hurt people.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was more on the page of, I just want it over with. I don't want my kids to suffer. Because I knew being angry and lashing out about him would only hurt them. Right. So I kept a lot of that in, vented it to my friends, but not to my kids. And I'm really glad that I did it that way.
Yeah.
and made it easy. It was a quick split, and that allowed me to move forward with my life and lead me to where I am today, which is a much better place.
No, I mean, I have a ton of respect for you because while you were the one that, again, we'll say got the rug ripped out from underneath you, like you had every reason.
Oh,
to-
there were lots of reasons,
Yeah,
which
no.
I found out later, but
Right,
that's
right.
another segment.
Right. But you had every reason to like, stand up and go toe to
Yeah.
toe. But like you said, your desire was just to take care of the kids. And I think for me too, is like once I had mediating, when we did the mediation and that didn't work, and then she had actually filed, and then she had an attorney. I quickly learned and realized that if I got an attorney and she got an attorney, then we were going to have to be bringing the kids into the courtroom, and I just wasn't going to do that. And so I knew that no matter what happened, no matter what position I took, if there was any fighting or if it got really bad, ultimately the kids were going to suffer.
Right.
So, like you said, it was like whatever you need, you feel like you need to live, the house and money, then just do it, because I just, I want her to be happy. I want us to exit. I want to exit the relationship, but I want to move on. And you got to be willing to just let go of stuff.
Yeah. And I think we should get into that a little more about moving on, like just what you did, your coping, your process of working through it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And we can get into that a little more maybe next time.
Yeah, I think you're right, for the sake
Because
of
it might help other people just kind of hearing our process and our path of healing.
No, I agree, because you can't bring up the conversation about divorce, unpack it in 15 minutes, but we also know that we want to be, we want to make sure that we do have the right dialogue and do it justice, because you're right, there are a lot of people out there that they're in different positions, they're in different stages of this, right? And so while the divorce proceeding can sometimes feel the most upheaval, the painful part is usually after, I think. But
Yeah.
I think you're right. So I think let's pick this
It's a
up.
whole process.
Yeah, let's pick this up again in our next conversation and see kind of to your point, how did we move through this and find.
And then we'll get into
Healing.
the fun stuff.
Yeah, then we'll get into fun
The
stuff.
dating and world in your 40s or 50s.
Hey, I wasn't 50 when I met you.
Love you.
All right, love you too.